Hi, I'm Mayor. Welcome to this video. On this video, I'm gonna teach you how to create a cluster and what is cluster. First, let's go to a documentary. What is cluster? So, if you come right here, if you want to read about cluster, there's a very good information. So, say cluster is a group of queue manager, that work together to provide enhanced message capabilities such as load balancing, high availability, and workload management. I put some more information about the cluster. I got all those data from the IBM MQ. You could go there and bring it up. Also, I will put this information on the video description. Everything I will put on a video description. IBM MQ Cluster is a feature that allows multi IBM Queue Manager to work together as a single unified system. In a cluster, each queue manager shares information about queues, channel, and cluster topology, and with other queue manager that cluster with other queue manager in the cluster. This enables seamless communication, workload balance across the cluster. So this is the key aspect. Below is 1, 2, 3 to 5. The first one is the share queue information. That means queue manager is on a cluster share the information about their local queue with the other queue manager. I will show you how. This allows application to access queue on a queue manager on the cluster, enhancing availability and scalability. And second good thing is cluster channel. Cluster channel or communicate link between the queue between two queue manager in the cluster. They are used to exchange cluster information. Make sure you know the cluster channel exchange the cluster information and message between queue manager. And cluster channel ensure reliable and efficient communication with the cluster. And work balance. IBM MQ cluster enable work balancing by distributing message across the different queue manager in the cluster. This help in optimizing resource utilization and improving overall performance. And the fourth one is automatic. Some job would be created automatic, but let's read what they say. Automatic queue manager discovery. Queue manager on the cluster automatically discover and join. Like let's say one queue manager want to talk with another queue manager. You don't need to create any services like a center and receiver channel. That will the cluster automatically discover and join the cluster when configured properly. This simplify the cluster setup and maintenance, reduce the administration work. It will reduce a lot of administration work. And high availability and failover. Cluster provide built-in high availability features such as automatic failover and message rerouting. If the queue manager fail, other queue manager on the cluster can continue processing message without interpreting. So let's read more about let's know more about the cluster. If you remember, I already created the queue, distribution queue. What that has, like each one has a receiver channel, center channel, remote queue, transmission queue, listener, like all top of the world. Let's say this queue manager want to talk with 10 of them, they must create like almost 20 center channel, 10 receiver channel in order to talk with those 10 of them. Is too much, like it's a lot of administration work. So what cluster does, it reduce that work. You don't need to create like connection to that one. If this person want to talk with that one, you will get the data from right here and send it right here. And how it does that one, because there's the concept come they call them cluster. We must give them cluster name. On a cluster name, we give them repository and partial repository. Let's read about partial repository and partial repository. What is it? If we come, let me bring it. You could come right here, distribution repository, the full repository and partial repository. The let's go back to the main one. No, not this main one. one up. So I will put this link on a video description, not to worry. The cluster repository. Repository is like full repository is a collection of information about the queue manager that are member in the cluster. If you want to read more, just get into it. Say repository collection information about queue manager. That's member. Repository information include the queue manager name. They will include this one, queue manager name, their location, and their channel. See, name, location, and channel, which queue they host and which queue the queues they host, and other information. That information is stored on the form of message and call them. That would be stored on this one, this place. System.cluster repository. All the information would be stored on that one. And system.cluster.repository, this default repository. When it comes, when it says system, the main system created, remember that the system.cluster.repository.queue, this queue is one of the default objects. You see, default object, and it is defined when you create it. The IBM MQ manager, it is just created by default basically. And we have a full repository. Let's come back. Full repository that has like, we must create a full repository and partial repository. Full repository that have all the collection, whatever. Probably you have a 10 QMGR. They will hold the information and store it right here. It will be right here. They will store it on the full repository. They will collect it right here. Partial repository only will have the information about the one who's want to talk to. If this person want to talk to this one, they only have information about this one, not more than that. Let's check. We must have at least two. Typically, we must have at least two cluster old repository. Right here, everything is so simple. I recommend you, instead even listening to me, come right here. Everything is so clear, and step by step, take your time and read it. Everything is clear. And queue manager host and a partial repository. So full repository, we have all full repository, and remaining queue is all partial repository. So I already told, partial repository only contain the information about those queue manager which the queue manager need to exchange. The partial repository contain information about only those queue manager which the queue manager need to exchange message. And the full repository will contain all the information on the cluster. Doesn't matter how many queue manager it will be there. When you queue manage your system to the common queue request and receive update, you see they will come to right here, cluster.common. All update would come from right here. They give you all the system, default system queue where your information would be. And you could read more about that, but once again, we will create a class. And also, how there's a channel on that. We're using a channel that way. The way we interact on a distribution queue right here, channel is a little bit different what they does right here. Channel, we have a center channel and a receiver channel. On a pull repository, we only put a receiver channel. The receiver channel is it is a channel used to and the cluster to receive a cluster information, to receive cluster from information from other queue manager. We use that one to receive cluster information from other queue manager. It listen for the cluster information and process them accordingly. And we have on a partial repository, we have a receiver channel and we have a center channel. Center channel is like on a cluster to send a cluster information. We will send this queue manager information, like queue manager name, like queue manager cluster, to this one, to storage right here. Like we will just send it right here. The full repository have all our information. This person also will send their information, and full, and many more will send it right here. All the data would be right here. But also, I say at least on a cluster there will be two queue manager as a full repository. Let's say there's a 10 queue or 20, 100 queue manager. On the 100 queue manager on one cluster, maybe there's a two full, there would be more, but usually it's a two full repository. So we have a sender who send the information to a full repository. We have a receiver who get the information about the, let's say I want to talk to this person. They will receive information from right here. They request it and receive it, this information from right here. Then they automatically, no need to we create the sender and receiver. That will automatically create the sender receiver connection to this one, or probably another one. So how simple is that? Like automatically the stuff would be discovered, but they will get the information from right here. So that's like China. And also we must have a listener for it. Each one has a listener, and I have a QMGR1, QMGR2, QMGR3. I put QMGR1 listener port 1414, for this one 1418, for this one 14419. Make sure you have a listener and a start. So we will have also like a cluster queue. Each one have our own cluster queue to send and receive data. So let's create it. How should we create a cluster? Okay, this is the code, the way we want to create it. First, we need to go to the QMG1 property to name ones, like to make them our QMG1 property as a full repository. Once you make whatever name is good, you put this name as a cluster name. So MQ repo, I put it, that would be my cluster name. You must mention it right here. So this way that become full repository. I just view it and I say display QMGR attribute. Then I change the attribute, especially the repos, to this one. Make sure you do that. You could copy and paste from there. Just say display and bring it and do it that one. First, I always recommend write your code right here and then copy and paste. That way you make less mistake. Then make sure you have a listener. I already have listener. Let me show you. I have a 3 QMGR. The first QMGR, the queue manager, my listener is I already created, because if you remember on the 1414 on a distribution queue. And I have one channel, ignore it, this is for the different reason. And the second one, if you check the second one, I have a queues. My destination queue and listener is also, I have 1418, and the channel, this is for distribution. I have a third one, there's nothing in it, and empty, that's empty, and channel is empty. So let's create this three work together. My first QMGR will be a full repository, and this two will be partial. This will have all my information. This will have that much information where you want to send or talk to the queue manager. Let's say this guy want to talk to this one, you will have that much information. We will make it as a partial repository. So let's check our code. We will first we're gonna go to our QMGR1, display it. Let's do it one by one. Copy. Each one is fine to copy and run it. Done first one. We get to a first one. You will see it. Now we are on the first one. We will copy that one. Just give me 1 second and make that one smaller that you could see it, and I will back and forth. Now I'm on the QMGR1. I think I already make that one full repository, but let's check it. Display and find the repos. Who would this find faster? Okay, it's right here. You see repos. I already make it my MQ repos. All you do that, and let's redo it, and there would be nothing. That would be empty. You will see it on the next one, and you just see copy, alter, copy, and paste it. Alter the QMGR and the repo name and enter it. So the change will be get it. And now I already have listener 2. I don't need to create it. Now I'm gonna define my channel. How we define the channel? We'll say define channel, the channel name. I named them that, but make sure it's less than 20 character. I say them connection, this is my receiver channel because it's a pull repository. I only need receiver channel. So my connection is a receiver type and is a QMGR1, and channel type is a cluster receiver, and the protocol is TCP, and you must mention your cluster right now. My cluster is MQ repos, the name, you must mention it right here. And the connection type, because I will put their own IP address, and the local host because it's on my, so we will, let's go and paste that one. Say define channel, the channel name, then channel type is cluster receiver, protocol we need to do, and TCP, and cluster we mention cluster and connection type, and that is get created. So we must also create the local queue. This is a cluster queue, make sure you know. We see we will say local queue, it is local queue. We name the cluster q1, but this is belong to cluster, that's why we gave them this cluster. You might be there's too many cluster, but this cluster queues belong to specific cluster, that's why we mentioned it. So that way we communicate, send message and receive message if you don't have a cluster queue. So this one is finished. We will come to QMGR2. On a QMGR2, but remember, we need to establish connection again. We need to have a center channel. You see there's a center channel with a QMGR1 because it's a full repository. What we do, we mention the port number and the host IP address. And the other information is same thing. It's a defined channel name, and the name we had to mention because there's a receiver, there's a center, they had to match. All three is matched, you see. Same on channel type cluster. This is a center. Cluster SDR is center and type is TCP, and a cluster you must mention same cluster name right here. And also, and right here check, you need to view your property. Let's view it and let's go to second one and see it. Let's exit from right here and go to a second one. Right now is cluster 2, and now we want to view it, so you will see it. I don't want to. See, there's nothing in it. You see, it's empty. When by default there's a nothing. Once you mention the name, that become full repository. If there's nothing, either there's nothing in it, or we as a partial repository. If you want to make it partial repository, you say alter QMGR repo. You just give them empty single code right here. When you provide them empty single code, there's nothing, no name in it. That become partial repository. I think I didn't copy right. Then enter, you see thing change. Now we want to create channel. Define channel, this is a center channel, and center channel name must be a similar name with the receiver channel, and channel type is a cluster center, and TCP IP, which I already, and this host, there would be IP address. If there's IP address that has a different, is located on a different enterprise, you need to put this IP right here, and then the port number, whatever, is right here. Let's copy and paste it. That get changed to, and we need also receive a channel. That way we receive the information. So how we should define channel? This is the, you could name it anything. You just name it like so you could name it anything you want. I say connection cluster QMGR2 because it's received. And what this is, my channel type is a cluster, my TCP IP is a TCP, my protocol is TCP, and this the, you must mention the same cluster name. See cluster, this is your cluster name, and connection type this time because localhost is my computer is localhost, and you need to mention your own port number listener that we create, because this one just receive data, and I just mentioned because the if you just because the logic is you don't have the pull repository don't have a send receiver, so you don't send the data over there. So this has become a receiver, and this receiver has own port what do you call 1418. That's the own port ID, and I get change it. Now we create a local queue. This would will be a cluster queue. So the name would be, this is a one I named him. This is a cluster cluster is 2, and we must mention the cluster name right here. Let's copy and paste. This is a local queue, that way we send a message. And we want to come right now to the third one. Same process we will do to a third one. So let's go say exit. You could say, you see, third one has nothing. I already told you we will create everything on that. So we will first we will alter it. I don't want to see the property because I show you already. Just I want to make this as a partial repository too. Copy, and this become partial repository, and I want to make channel cluster queue channel same name, and receiver and port number all fine. So let's copy and paste. Same thing. I will put all this comment on the video description. And also I need a receiver channel, and the IP is, there's a port this IP local is my IP or local host, and my port number, and the same port number as on the QMGR3. We will create the QMGR3 right now. We need to create the listener right now. We need to create the listener. Let's say I want to create that to 9 and TCP/IP. TCP/IP QMGR3 I will treat. Now we create it, we want to start it. So same thing, we start it. So make sure it works fine. And name in 3. Now we start, listener accepted. So we need to create the local queue as a cluster queue. That become cluster queue. So let's create that one as well. Now everything is fine, but if you want to see all the cluster, display all the cluster queue, you could do this one. Use the, I will put all this comment over there. You could display it, all the cluster queue, something. This is a queue information. This is a cluster 2 we just created, and also the type you see is a queue cluster. That's why it's, this is the queue, still local queue, but the type, it is belong to cluster. And if you see all the channel like cluster, display the status of the cluster queue, you could use that one. You could see it, and you see the channel cluster service, they will display the queue. And also if you let's see status, see the status is running. You see, we want to see the status. If you want to see queue type, you could say channel name. You will see all. You could check everything, like is a, you see the queue type is normal, no transaction, and it give you all the information. So if there's a one more, okay, there's a, this comment I will put it back, but let's check it right now. See, if you go right here, now I have a remote queue center receiver local queue. I have a cluster. You see, still local queue. That's my cluster queue. And channel, I have a 2 channel. You see, connection type, and another one localhost, same thing. And this is connected to itself. You see, that's why. And check that one. I have 2 queue right now. You see, 2 queue cluster Q2, and the listener is on, and the channel, I have 2 channel, 3 channel. Forget about why, I'm gonna delete one. And I have this one listener. This is my queue, which I have a cluster queue, and I have listener and channel. See, channel is on. I have a 2 channel and 2 channel. So let's check.